of questioning, even of doubt, but it's a movement of constant learning. Okay, I'm a Reformed Jew because I cannot study the Torah uncritically or without depth. I can't be satisfied with, the answer, why do we do something? My grandfather would have said, or my grandmother would have said, it's geschrieben, it's written, okay? And that's why we do it, okay? Progressive Jews are not satisfied or shouldn't be satisfied with it's geschrieben, okay? For us, we study, we question, we seek answers, and when we find the answers, we seek some more answers, okay? That it is a lifetime of Jewish learning, and the result of the study, which is at the forefront of progressive Judaism, is that it leads us to the religious practices we embrace, okay? And we don't necessarily have to all embrace the same set of religious practices, okay? There may be particular mitzvot that I've decided are important to me and to my religious fulfillment as a result of learning about them and figuring out how they fit into my life. And I may have a set of mitzvot that I've determined works meaningfully for me, and that may be different than Alistair said, or Peter said, or Paul said, or whomever, right? There are some communal standards, but there are also individual standards. I might say more about that. Maybe I'll just say that now, and if I repeat it later, you'll know that it was important, right? There are some communal standards. I have personal autonomy in some of the mitzvot choice making that I do, but I don't have complete autonomy. Okay, I can't decide, for example, that for my personal convenience or whatever it is, I'm going to celebrate Shabbat on Tuesday. Okay, because there's a communal standard which is greater than that. Okay, and so the community makes some decisions that we buy into and we respect, but then there are other decisions. Like for progressive Jews, like kashrut, okay? I may decide I want to keep complete kashrut, and I'll only eat meat from a kosher butcher, and I won't mix milk and meat. I won't eat any prohibited foods. I'll follow the rules just like any other Jew who follows kashrut, okay? But that's my personal choice, okay? And across the table from me may be somebody who, doesn't mix milk and meat, but they do eat meat that's not kosher, okay? Not prohibited meat, but they'll eat beef from a regular butcher, not a kosher butcher, okay? And then there may be somebody else at the table who eats everything. And there may be somebody at the table who decided that they have a personal kind of kashrut that's based on what's called eco-kashrut. They'll only eat ecologically sustainable in a way, in that way. Okay, and that's in a category of mitzvot that where personal autonomy is granted and respected, and we don't judge each other. Okay, we don't judge each other. Okay, I go out to a meal, everybody's worried. They're going, the rabbi's coming for a meal. Okay, everybody worries. Okay, they're worried about two things: what's the rabbi going to eat, and what am I going to eat when the rabbi's at the table? Right? Okay, it's a matter of personal choice, and there's real personal autonomy. And when I go to eat with people, I eat according to my choices, and they eat according to their choices, and it's not judgmental. Okay. So all of that exists in progressive Judaism, but once you make your choices, you have to stick by it. Okay, you can't say, this is my kashrut, my personal kashrut practice, but oh, gee, that shrimp looks really good, so I'll just have that today. Okay, I mean, standards are standards, whether they're personal or communal. Okay, all right. The second, I'm proud to be a Reform Jew because, in addition to my mind, Reform Judaism demands the devotion of my heart. Okay, it's not academic exercise. Judaism is not an academic exercise, even though we are committed to study. Okay, Reform Judaism expects a Judaism of emotion and a passionate commitment to Jewish life. Okay, and I believe that Progressive Judaism has the right balance of heart and mind. Okay, that's number two. Number three, Tikkun Olam has always been high on the agenda of Reform Judaism. Okay, we have been in the forefront of movements for freedom and liberation in this country and in North America as well. Progressive Jews have been in the forefront of the issues of social justice, promoting issues of social justice. We cannot abide or tolerate injustice or social inequality, and we work for the betterment of the world. That's number three. Number four, Reform Judaism offers hope in the face of despair. Okay, now I talked a lot about this on Rosh Hashanah, so I don't need to say too much more about that, except that, I don't think that Jewish identity needs to be rooted in the tragedies of the past. Okay, our identity should not be based on the Holocaust and anti-Semitism and all that, the negative stuff in the world, but that our identity should be based on our hopes for the world, for the future, for a life lived according to God's will and God's vision. Okay, and so I believe that because Reform Judaism doesn't tolerate injustice, and that we live in this world. We live in the world, not despite the world, not in ignorance of the world, not blind to anyone's suffering. That's number three. Oh, no, number four. The world is a good place, and Jews should enjoy the benefits of living in it. That was the one, hope in the face of despair. Sorry. Number five. I'm proud to be a Reform Jew because Reform is committed to dynamic and vibrant Jewish life in Israel and the diaspora. Okay, so two things, and I won't say too much about this because I'm going to talk about this on Yom Kippur morning. So this is the teaser of Yom Kippur morning. Everybody should be there because I'm going to talk about what I think the relationship with Israel and the diaspora should be. Okay, but I will say that in Progressive Judaism's commitment to a dynamic and supportive relationship between Jews who live in the diaspora and Jews who live in Israel, we are Zionists in the sense that we support the state of Israel, even when we're disenchanted or disappointed by Israeli politics and policies. Okay, it's not about Medinat Yisrael. It's not about the state of Israel. It's about Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Okay, but I'm not going to say more about that today because I don't want to, upstage myself. Okay, and I want you all to come and hear what I have to say because it's good. Okay, number six. I'm proud to be a Reform Jew because Reform is the only movement that has included full equality for women since its very inception. okay? We are a movement of quality, and we demand equal responsibility and obligation of all Jews, regardless of gender, okay? I said in the sermon, quite frankly, I can't understand why any Jewish woman living today would accept limitations on her religious life, religious opportunities, opportunities for religious expression. Okay, I just don't get it. Okay, you know, for those who do get it and are happy to embrace it, is into hate. You know, I'm not saying they shouldn't. I just don't get it. Okay, and I could never imagine myself adhering to a Jewish religious system that made those kinds of distinctions. Okay, we have we have women rabbis, we have women cantors, we have women president of synagogues. You know, there should be no aspect of religious life in which rabbis who are men say to women, you're, and they do it in the most polite way, you're exempt. Okay. Okay, not you're prohibited, you're exempt. Okay. And because you're exempt, you can't do it because it'll negatively affect us. Right? Because that's the real system in the halakha. The halakha never says women can't do anything. Okay, it doesn't say women cannot read from the Torah. Okay, what it says is that in order to be fulfilled of the commandment to read from the Torah, you have to be present when the Torah is read, okay? And then you are exempt, you have fulfilled your obligation through agency of the person who's chanting Torah, okay? So, this morning I'll chant Torah, you will all be listening, all of you will fulfill the mitzvah of chanting Torah because I'm your agent, okay? But the halakha says that the agent has to be obligated. Okay, so a Christian religious scholar who knows Hebrew fluently and knows how to chant Torah, if that person was chanting Torah this morning, nobody would be fulfilled of their obligation because that person can't be your agent because that person is not obligated. So now the Orthodox rabbis say women are exempt because they're exempt from all positive time-bound mitzvot, okay? And so the reading of Torah is a positive act, okay? It's not a refraining from doing something, it's a doing something. And it's required to be done at specific times, so women are exempt. Now the women are exempt, so they can't be the agent for the whole community. So they say, well, you can't read Torah on Shabbat morning. Okay, because if you read Torah, you're fulfilling your obligation, which you have. I understand you have the obligation. You're exempt from it, but you can do it, right? But if you do that, everybody else doesn't get fulfilled of the obligation. So women are prohibited. Okay, that's how they do it. Okay. There are modern Orthodox communities in America. I don't know if there are any here that have a women's minyan on Shabbat morning, where only women come to that minyan, and women lead the service, and they chant Torah and all the things that women are actually allowed to do, but they're not prohibited because there's nobody out there who's going to be affected by the agency. Okay, that's the way it gets played out. Okay, but I just don't get it. I don't get how people would accept a kind of second-class status in religious life. And I'm proud to be a Reformed Jew because that's not our system. Okay. 7, I'm proud to be a Reformed Jew because of personal autonomy, which I've already spoken about. I'm proud to be a Reformed Jew because our teachers and rabbis are real people. Okay, so what do I mean by that? I'm going to read the whole section because in halachic language, I'm nogea b'gavar, which means I'm talking about what rabbis do, and I'm one of them. So I'm just going to read it. Okay. I'm proud to be a Reformed Jew because our teachers and rabbis are real people. They are not symbols or relics from ages past. They are neither myths nor messiahs. Our rabbis are fathers and feminists. They work in hospices and hillels. They are single and married women and men. Our rabbis are not holier than thou, and good Reformed Jews do not expect their rabbi to be more religious than they are. We don't say, I eat treif, but my rabbi better keep kosher. I drive to shul, but my rabbi had better walk. While it's true that as rabbis, we must strive to be excellent role models, upstanding moral individuals whose whole heart and soul is dedicated to Judaism and its perpetuation, most of us are not rebbes. People don't stand in awe when we enter into a room, although it's an interesting concept. I like it. But I'm happy that people are not afraid of us. And many times we are the rabbis that people talk to. And I'm proud to be a rabbi who lives among his people and is at one with them. Okay, so that's number 8. Number 9, I'm proud to be a Reformed Jew because Reform is the movement which best answers today's spiritual needs with true creativity. Progressive Judaism has the most vibrant and creative direction of all of the movements in religious life. Okay, we have created new rituals for brief ceremonies for girls to acknowledge that women are fully included in the covenant, not just men. We've created rituals for after a miscarriage or stillbirth. We've created rituals for when your youngest child leaves the home and you're empty nested. There's all kinds of things that our rabbis and teachers have created to fulfill needs that are real needs for our people, but didn't exist in the in the Mishnah, in the rabbinic literature. Okay, our music is eclectic. We see it here at Beit Emmanuel. One moment the ensemble is singing Lewandowski's Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, right? And the next moment, we have a guitar and we're singing something that sounds like it's from a local rock festival, or folk festival. But the creativity of the eclectic music and the innovative nature of how to take a liturgy and express it in either the more kind of high church fashion or more contemporary fashion also is an example of creativity in the area of meeting spiritual needs of people. Okay, and finally, I'm proud to be a Reformed Jew because Reformed Judaism is ever-changing, developing, and growing, just as Judaism has authentically done for the past 2,000 years. Okay, I believe that there has never been, it has never been a part of the dynamic of Jewish history that Judaism remains static for for hundreds of years. Okay, when I used to teach 7th grade at my religious school, when I was growing up, before I was a rabbi, I taught 7th grade in the religious school, and one of the questions I would have for the students, I said to them, imagine that somebody came to Earth from a different planet and sought you out because they knew you were Jewish and said, could you please give me a book to read that would tell me everything about the Jewish people and how they live? And so what book would you give them? And they were seventh graders and they thought they would please me by saying, I'd give them the Torah, right? So they all said the Torah. And I said, okay, I've just read the Torah. I think that the Jewish people have priests, slaughter animals, and sacrifices, right? Our nomads take their tabernacle from place to place as they go. That's what I think the Jewish people are, okay? But of course, that's not who we are. And even when in the period when there was a temple standing in Jerusalem, it was different than the biblical period. But we are completely different than that, because when the temple was destroyed, Judaism adapted to a new world, okay, in which there was no temple and no priesthood. And either Judaism would come to an end in that moment, or it would reinvent itself, okay, which it did. This was the genius of the Pharisees, the early rabbis who we read about in the Talmud, they created a completely new form of Judaism. And the genius was they didn't say they were creating a new thing. They said they were kind of temporarily transforming what was already there to meet the new circumstance, right? And so priesthood disappeared, except for, calling a Kohen and then a Levi to the Torah in congregations where they do that to kind of honor the priesthood, even though it's not really there anymore. But the leadership became rabbis, and we don't do sacrifices. Instead, we do avodah, we do prayer and study and mitzvot, right? It's a totally different system. If you read the Torah and then you say, you look at the practice that we practice, you would think it's a completely different people, except for the genius of the rabbis who made it transformational, okay? And said, we do, when you make motzi, this is really the temporary equivalent of the mincha offering, right? So your table is the altar, and you are offering this as a sacrifice. That's one of the reasons they put salt on that, right? Okay, all right. I'm just saying, the genius was they didn't say, the king is dead, long live the king, right? They just morphed it, okay? Similarly, after the French Revolution and the emancipation in Europe, Judaism needed to change again because it had been totally insular, okay? Totally sort of separate from the outside world. Jewish communities in that period of time had their own courts, civil courts. They had their own tax collectors. They had their own schools, right? And they were totally separate from the secular world. All of a sudden, Napoleon comes through Europe and says everybody should, brotherhood, equality, and he's no great lover of the Jews, but all of a sudden the Jews have equality and citizenship, right? And so Judaism has to, again, adjust to a completely new world, okay? And so what comes out of that? Two ideas. One idea is circle the wagons, okay? That's an American expression, right? Circle the wagons, voluntarily put upon yourself the kind of separation from secular society that we have already. That line of thinking leads to orthodoxy. Okay? The other folks having the exact same set of concerns, okay, as the ones who become Orthodox, so what we consider Orthodox, okay, have the same concerns. They're worried about assimilation, worried about Judaism coming to an end. They say, no, the way to make sure that Judaism survives is like the Pharisees did when the temple was destroyed, morph Judaism to a different form that conforms better to the new circumstance, okay, and allows people to remain Jewish but engage in the modern world, and that line leads to progressive Judaism. Okay? Orthodoxy and progressive Judaism are twins. They are born at the same moment in history. Okay, Orthodoxy will tell you that that's not true. That only progressive Judaism was born in that moment of Judaism, and they are the inheritors of the true Judaism. But this is also historical nonsense. Okay, that the birth of what we consider modern Orthodoxy and progressive Judaism is at the same historical moment, and it's akin to when the temple was destroyed and the Pharisees, who I would say in this model are the progressives, right? There was an Orthodoxy. There were the Sadducees who said, no, none of this rabbi stuff, none of this decentralized synagogue stuff. We're just going to hold on to what there was. Now they actually disappeared. Okay. I think that progressive Judaism is truly the authentic historical Judaism, and Orthodoxy, who claims authenticity, is actually the relic, because they exist today by trying to freeze Jewish practice at a moment in history which has passed. Okay. That was number 10. I cannot live exactly as my ancestors lived because they could not live exactly as their ancestors lived, and that's how it's always been. Okay, those are the 10 reasons. I'm open to your questions, thoughts, and conversation. Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, Rabbi, do you think that part of the concern that Orthodoxy has is the misunderstanding of the variety of practice that there is in progressive Judaism? Progressive Judaism, not all of us are expected to practice in the same way.
Right.
We share the core, but our expression of it is varied through our critical analysis of what we believe will lead us to cultivate a greater relationship with God.
Yeah.
Do you think that part of the concern about the Orthodox Jews is that?
I think it might be the whole concern. Not very part. Orthodoxy, by definition, is a heteronymous system. It's not an autonomous system. Okay, by that I mean a heteronymous system. The authority for decision making is outside of the individual. Okay, in an autonomous system, the individual has authority, and as I tried to say a little bit earlier, progressive Judaism has limited autonomy, but it has autonomy. And it has autonomy in areas of personal meaning, okay? Less so than communal practice, okay? But Orthodoxy is heteronymous. And so the minute we start talking about choosing a kind of menu of mitzvot, for a lack of better way to describe it, as soon as we start talking about that, and talking about doing certain things and not doing certain things, it makes them nuts, okay? It makes them crazy, because that's not their system, okay? In a heteronymous system, there's only one real question. And the question is it permitted or is it forbidden, okay? And I mean, if an Orthodox rabbi was here, I'm sure he wouldn't agree to everything I'm saying, okay? So I'm giving you the Reform rabbi's idea of orthodoxy. But Their essential question is it permitted or is it forbidden? And the authority is the Torah, but not every Orthodox Jew is sufficiently qualified to interpret, so the authority is the Rebbe. Okay, so you want to know if it's prohibited or if it's forbidden, or you want to know also, I guess there is a question of have you done it correctly or not, things that are permitted. Okay, the Rebbe is the authority because he, and in that case it is always a he, right? He understands and has the skills and the knowledge to interpret Torah in whatever the case is that's being discussed. Okay. Not all the Rebbes agree with each other. That's another thing. But you can't shop Rebbes. Okay, in the Orthodox world, you have a Rebbe, he's your Rebbe. Okay, you go to him, he tells you, and it's geschriven, right? You know, that's the answer. You know, ultimately, if you don't like any of the answers of your Rebbe, you'll go and find another Rebbe. Okay, but they don't shop around for the, you know, you don't go to 4 different Rebbes and hope you get the answer you want. You know, you have a Rebbe. But that's the essential difference, and that's why it makes them crazy. Okay, a little bit like Protestant churches and the Catholic Church, or you know, whatever, you know, that orthodoxy by its definition is you know, orthodoxy by definition is the correct way to do things, right? Because we know ortho is you know, it's to correct something like orthopedics, orthodontists, right? You know, they're going to correct something or do it correct, and doxy is doctrine. Okay, so by definition, that's the correct way, and if you don't do it that way, you're not doing it right. So I think that's what makes them so crazy.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity. I want to ask, does being a progressive Jew includes redefine Torah to suit our individual needs? Again, being progressive does include not coming to shul or not being part of the community, and not trying to keep the law as given to us by Moses. So I don't know.
Okay.
Just tell us, please.
Okay. The easy part is it's not about it doesn't include not coming to shul, not doing that, you know, and I tried to cover that. That's popular misconception number 2. If I'm a good Jew, if I'm a good person, that's enough. Okay, that's not progressive Judaism. Progressive Judaism has standards and demands religious commitment to religious life, not just ethical goodness. Okay, interpreting Torah to meet our needs. I think we read Torah to try to gain insights about those things that are challenging for us in our lives. Yeah. I think the purpose of religion, not just Judaism, but of all religion, the purpose of religion is to understand God's will. Okay. However you know, we have the different, you know, different names for God, different ideas about God, but the purpose of religion is to understand God's will and to do it, to live by it. Okay. The Jewish system is Torah and mitzvot. Torah to understand God's will, and mitzvot to do it, right? So when we read Torah as progressive Jews, I think we're reading Torah to try to gain insights and to come to the best understanding that we're able to achieve about God's will for humanity, for the world, for the planet, right? And the Jewish system to do God's will is mitzvot. Okay, and so to the degree that we are able to organize our lives so that we're living according to God's will as we can understand it, is by embracing mitzvot. Not we don't embrace them all. Even Orthodoxy, by the way, doesn't embrace them all because they say there's 613 mitzvot, but a whole bunch of them are about the temple and the sacrifices. Oh no, those are just time. They're just time bound. So they're suspended. Nobody does them because we can't until the temple is back. Okay, news bulletin: the temple's not coming back. Okay, and Reform or Progressive Judaism doesn't pray for the restoration of the temple. Right. We don't have a Musaf service. Okay, the Musaf service in the Orthodox liturgy is devotional prayers for the reestablishment of the temple and the priesthood. Okay, now I don't think they believe it. I mean, I don't think when they pray Musaf, they're actually hoping that tomorrow the priesthood will be restored and they'll go back to sacrifices. But theoretically, they continue to pray for it. For the most part, progressive Jews don't pray anything they don't believe. Okay, so folks who don't believe in, or think that the liturgy means physical resurrection, will say Mechayeh HaKol, not Mechayeh HaMeitim, right? Because we don't pray stuff we don't believe. And folks in the same community who think that Mechayeh HaMeitim isn't about physical resurrection, but about God's connection to our being after we've died, right? Are comfortable saying Mechayeh HaMeitim. And the beautiful thing about progressive Judaism is I can say Mechayeh HaMeitim, and the person sitting next to me can say Mechayeh HaKol, and we don't judge each other. Okay, it's progressive Judaism. Okay, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought, but
I think it's related to the previous question, and that is, what is progressive Judaism's relationship to the rabbinical tradition? Because it's not crystal clear.
okay.
And related to that, one of the things that I am aware of is that in the Orthodox tradition, there is a sense of ancestry, including one's own forebears. So some people will say,
in rabbinical dynasty, you mean?
no, even like individuals will say, and I've noticed it particularly in the Sephardic, the Siddur and tradition, they say, you follow the way of your father, and I mean literally your father. And your father followed the way of his father, and his father followed the way of his father. Obviously, changes occur, but it seems to be related to what you said earlier around obligation. So you kind of obligated not only for yourself, but you're obligated for the sake of your forebears.
Okay.
Because you don't want to say
Right.
that your father did something different
Right.
and make him wrong.
Right. Okay. Yes. The Hebrew terminology here is called zechut avot,
Yes, yes.
the merit of the ancestors.
Right.
Okay. Okay. So here's what I'll say about zechut avot. I don't think that if you allow for change in religious practice, you are saying that your ancestors did it wrong. I think what you're saying is that the flow of history is dynamic. Okay, that that history is moving. And if you look at the 7-day story of creation, the very first story of the Torah, starts with complete chaos, right? Tohu vabohu. Okay. And there's a kind of process of creation of God taking the elements of tohu vabohu, okay, the dark and the wet and it's all out there, but it's chaos, right? It's tohu vabohu. And then God says, "Well, we'll put light over here, and now there's light and darkness." And God says, "Well, let's separate the water and the dry space, right? And let's put a divider between the sky and the land, right?" It's sorting out the elements of chaos and bringing order, right? And it moves through the days, and at the end, what do we have? Shabbat, okay, right? The world is created, and we rest, okay? So I think two things come out of the story. At the end of each day, God says, "Oh, that's good. Ito," or sometimes told, "Oh, it's very good," right? So one thing we get out of that story is, what does good mean? Good means chaos is less and order is more. So anything that moves us from chaos toward order is good. And anything that takes us from order to more chaos is bad. Okay? So we get that out of the story. The other thing we get is that history is moving. Okay? And that perfection is at the end. Okay? So in any moment in time, we are on the spectrum between chaos and perfection, and we're moving toward perfection. So in that framework, we can say our ancestors didn't get it wrong, but history is moving, and it's moving toward perfection. And we can improve upon the practice of our ancestors while revering them for their practice in their time. Okay, we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Right. We're little people, but we stand on the shoulders of giants. And a little person standing on a giant's shoulders can still see farther than the giant. Right? Yeah.
Thanks, Rabbi. My question would be, the question and a remark at the same time, where I think the misconceptions, it also comes from the people. I think that because you're progressive Jew or you're conservative Jew, you're an Orthodox Jew, you're the chosen one, so there's no need to actually, that qualifies you in this world, in this spiritual world. So also caused by the language.
Also, I'm sorry, say again?
Also the language.
Yeah.
Because we actually reading everything in Hebrew, of course, with translation. But do people really understand the Hebrew language? What the message?
Okay.
That's my predicament, because you find that somebody maybe speak think that they are okay with Hebrew, but do they understand each and every word?
Okay. First of all,
so for them to put this thing to be practical.
Okay. Even in the time of the rabbis, that like the great rabbis of the Mishnah, like even in their time, people didn't understand Hebrew. I mean, they did because they were scholarly. The street language, the common language, was Aramaic.
Yes.
Okay, that's what people spoke, and that's what they understood. And when the Torah was read in the public square, there was a person who was called the Metargama, the translator. So the person who read the Torah would read the Torah, and then the translator would do it in Aramaic, so people would understand what was being read. Okay, and we know that people didn't fully understand Hebrew but they understood Aramaic because the most important prayer of the service, which is the Kaddish, is in Aramaic to this day. Okay, right? It's not Hebrew, it's Aramaic. And it's Aramaic because for the memorial prayer, they wanted to make sure everybody understood what they were saying. The other stuff, they could translate or like we do. They listen to the Hebrew, it has spiritual value, even when you don't understand the Hebrew, there's a spiritual elevation by praying in Hebrew or listening to the Hebrew, right? And the translations provided, you can read it if you don't understand it, okay? But it's not just progressive Jews who don't understand Hebrew. Even the Orthodox Jews who go to the services don't understand the Hebrew. The rabbis do, okay? And some of them do, just like some of us do, right? But it's not a requirement to understand it, it's a requirement to pray. It's never been a requirement to understand the prayers in Hebrew. It's a requirement to pray in Hebrew because Hebrew is Lashon HaKodesh. It's the holy language. It is spiritually elevating to pray in Hebrew. Okay? So I should make that popular misconception number 4. Okay, thank you. It'll make the next revision. Yeah.
Rabbi?
Thank you for the enlightening presentation. I want to pick up on the discussion about religious observance and communal attendance. I see, maybe you can guide me here, a danger that we see a Jew as a religious entity, perhaps on the whole. And the problem I have with that is already other religions see me as, or my ethnicity, my identity as a religious, which is in their eyes a component of my being. Whereas my understanding from the Torah is that Hashem has been our environment from the days of infinity.
Okay.
As opposed to a thing we do on a designated day. Because
Okay, it's
we
a great-
peculiar, we do it on a Saturday, but then we become church.
Okay, so it's a great question, really good question. You don't have to be a religious Jew to be a Jew. Okay? The Jewish people and the Jewish religion are not one and the same. So you are absolutely right. And that the Jewish religion is only one component part of Jewish identity. Okay, so in that you are absolutely correct. I don't take any issue with that. What I'm focused on this morning is the religious identity of Jews and how the different streams of Jewish religious life compare with one another. Okay. Jews who do not practice the Jewish religion are still Jews. Okay. I'm a rabbi, I would say they're wayward Jews, but they're still Jews. Okay. It's a little bit about when I was talking about being a good person, you can be a good Jew, you can be a Jewish person and a good person, okay, without the Jewish religion. I don't think you can be a good Jew without the Jewish religion. I think without the Jewish religion, you're still Jewish, but I said jokingly, you're wayward. You're not quite complete as a Jew without the Jewish religion. Okay, but even the Orthodox rabbi is not going to say you're not Jewish because you don't come to the synagogue. He's just going to say you're wayward. you're missing out on the reward of following the mitzvahs, right? Okay, but he's not gonna say you're not Jewish. If the Orthodox rabbi knows you were born to a Jewish mother, okay, and you come to get married at the Orthodox synagogue, you get married, whether you go to shul or not, because you're Jewish, okay? That's different than what I've been talking about this morning. Okay. I kind of think we're out of time, and it's time to practice the Jewish religion in a different way, although certainly study is the first form of avodah, but now we'll do a little bit of worship as well. Okay, so take a short break while we organize the room for tefillah, and then we'll begin.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi's room.
Yeah.
It's so
I just want to make sure people. They're doing some cultural.
No.
But you and me. Yeah, forward. And then I also want to argue with people because congregation and we're a seen and very special moment. So maybe it's saying in man, he's for the 100 people, it's saying he's for the 100 people.